Before I start sketching, I gather reference to get some ideas flowing. I have my subject in mind, but references not only help for details and accuracy later, but they generate ideas for poses, outfits and colours. Here are a few images from Google, just a brief few minutes browsing Gothic Lolita. I grab my sketchbook. I am better at jotting down a sketch on paper because it's a little more permanent. It's never perfect, but it gets my idea out of my head and onto paper. I start with simple shapes, building a skeleton of the most basic shapes, circles, triangles and squares. I then fill in some details using my references to inspire the outfit and pose. It's loose and small on the page, but it's a good foundation to take into Clip Studio. The cleanup sketch is my favourite part. Here, I took a photo and brought this into Clip Studio Paint. I turn the opacity down on the layer, and on a new layer, I start drawing. Here I can flesh out my vision and fix details, proportions, and refine the overall drawing. With a pressure-sensitive but hard flat brush, I start inking in my sketch. This is where decisions are made, choosing which lines exist and which ones to omit. You have to be loose and smooth to get good fine lines, and this takes practice. If you're new to a pen tablet, it pays to practice drawing smooth straight lines and circles before tackling line art. As boring as it sounds, you'll be thankful when you see your line art become smooth instead of wobbly from shaky, beginner hands. On the line art layer, I use the Magic Wand selection tool and click outside my line art. I make the selection smaller by 1 to 2 pixels and invert the selection. I then fill on a new layer with the main color I want to use. I then use different layers to create different zones for the drawing. Hair gets its own layer, skin and eyes, the flowers, the white trimming. This is to keep things organized. I use the same flat opaque brush as I used for my line art to fill in the flat colors. I don't want any transparency, just solid color. On a new layer, set it to multiply, 30% opacity, and clipped within the other color layers. Use black to fill in the shadows. I choose the top right corner as my light source, which dictates where I paint the shadows. It's important to gain some understanding of 3D form and lighting, even in such a simplistic style. The multiply layer here allows the colour underneath to retain its hue but darken in value. I use a new layer set to screen, 50% opacity, and picking the layer colors to set the highlights, following my chosen light source. I then add rosy cheeks to an overlay layer using a red color. For textures, I paste in an image, clip it within the rest of the drawing. I set it to multiply and I mask it in order for the texture to avoid the light areas such as skin, eyes, and the trimming. To do this, erase these areas on the mask layer. I do the same method with the lace texture. I turn to the image grayscale, and to do this, I go to the hue and saturation or Ctrl U and lower the saturation to -100. I then lock the line art layer and using a darker hue, colour the line art to suit. I fix any little mistakes and clean up the drawing. I add makeup and more highlights, and add any finishing touches that I think it needs.